Hello lovelies, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm finally showing you all of my vintage purses. I have been collecting these purses for a few years now. Actually, a lot of them I got in my Redbird vintage box, and then a few I got at auction and estate sales. And it's still a work in progress. I've kind of been holding it off for a while now because I just feel like it isn't quite what I want it to be, but I thought now's the time to kind of showcase some of my vintage purses since I did get a new lot at an auction recently and they're quite beautiful and very old, so I thought now's the time. So let's jump right in and I'll share with you my vintage purse collection. So I thought it would be fun to start out with some of my older, more precious pieces. These are from the 1920s and 1930s as well as 1940s. Some of them might even be older as the 1920s and maybe even Edwardian. So let's start out and I'll show you my older purses. So the first one is this beautiful little bag. I believe this one is probably from the 1920s. The reason why I think that is because it says it's made in France. You can tell that the lining is silk. It might even be older. It just has a very Art Nouveau feeling to it. That's why it might even be Edwardian or possibly the 1930s. But it kind of, the floral print is very Art Nouveau, but the coloring is very 1920s. And I just think the detailing is very beautiful around these handles, and they have the curved lines, which makes me think it's Art Nouveau. And the fact that it's made in France and that it's silk inside. So again, I'm not saying that I'm an expert in any of this, so if you think that I'm wrong on the date of any of these, please let me know in the comments below because I'd love to know your thoughts too. This is just a guess. I did study the history of fashion when I went to fashion school, so I do know a lot, and I just am very interested in the subject, so I'm always looking things up. But again, I know a lot of you guys are very knowledgeable as well, so please don't hesitate to just leave any comments if you think this is even older than 1920s or 1930s. I'd love to know your thoughts. So this is the first piece. If you're new to my channel, hello, my name is Laura, welcome. This is a channel where I talk about all things vintage, fashion, and beauty, so please don't forget to subscribe if this is something you enjoy. Moving on, this is another beautiful purse. This one is embroidered and it definitely has a 1920s feel to it, mainly because of the hardware. It has an Art Deco look with the hard edged lines that remind me of something Art Deco, as well as the details on the back, which is very Art Deco. So this is my second purse, and this one I believe is from the 1920s. Then I got a whole collection of braided bags at an auction. I believe they were $30 for the lot, so it's around $10 a bag. And there's 3 of them. This is the first one in the collection. I was looking online, it seemed the braided style was quite popular in the 1940s. I do believe that some of these might even be older than that. So this bag, I believe, is from the 1940s, but it also might be a bit older because of the shape and handle, which seem to be very popular in the 30s and 20s as well. I'm still debating. I think this jewel was added to it because you can see the stitching there and it looks a little bit amateur. But the rest of the hardware looks very old to me, and I think this corded style is also very old. And quite frankly, the lines to it are very Art Deco with the more angular shapes to the cord, so it's hard to say. This is the first one in my collection and I quite like the little mini size to it. And the second one in my collection to me seems older than 1940s, mainly because the hardware again has a very Art Deco geometric shape to it, which kind of throws me off. The zipper is also very old looking to me. It says made in Canada again. So I can tell by the hardware that it is quite old. Again, it's in perfect condition. There's no flaws at all, but it doesn't say anything about the manufacturer inside, so I really can't look it up. But as you can see, the shapes are, again, very Art Deco with the diamonds, like angular shapes of the cording, as well as this kind of rounded shape. I've seen this a lot in Art Deco fashion as well as designs and architecture. It also has the braided handle, which makes me think that it might be older, so let me know what you think in the comments below if you think this is 1920s or 1930s. And this is my last corded bag. Again, I think this is probably 1930s or 40s. It's hard to say. It has something inside. It says Montreal Normandy, so that is the brand. The hardware, this hardware is gold versus the other one that was silver. And then inside there's like gold lining, but again, it's very high quality. And I do believe this type of shape was more popular in the 1940s with the smaller handle. So perhaps this is the newer one of the series. But again, I'm thrown off a little because of the geometric shape in the cording. So this is my last kind of corded vintage bag. And moving on with my collection, I have a whole bunch of embroidery bags, as you can see, that I have collected over the years. For some reason, whenever I see these, I always just love buying them, especially sometimes they're quite cheap. And I don't know, I just think they're really pretty and they definitely suit my style. I really like that kind of embroidered tapestry look. I think is one of my older ones in the collection. The lining feels a lot older. Again, it doesn't say where it was made, so I don't know. But it just has that higher quality lining. For some reason, the kind of gold details on here seem like kind of 1960s to me, maybe even 1970s. But it does feel newer than the details on my other bags. The hardware just feels newer. So I'm thinking maybe 1970s. I'm not entirely sure though, but I feel like this is one of my older embroidered ones. And moving on, here is another one. And this one I think is probably from the 1970s or 80s. I know when that movie, The Great Gatsby, came out there in the 70s, the Robert Redford one, there's kind of a resurgence of the 1920s, so perhaps this is kind of where all these styles came from because they're from the same decade. And the hardware feels kind of cheap on this. It's not even, I don't even know if it's a good quality metal. You can just tell it doesn't feel as old, it just seems cheaper to me. The lining on this one is blue. It's almost like someone did make this themselves. It definitely has some nice piping along the edge. And this is just another one of my little embroidered bags. I believe this one I got at the thrift shop for $2. Again, this one says it is made in Japan. I'm thinking the made in Japan ones are a little older than the made in Hong Kong. So this could be from the early 70s, maybe even 1960s, but I'm thinking 1970s. You can just tell that the hardware isn't as expensive as the older ones again, but I really do like the embroidered detail and pattern on this one. This one feels like a newer one too, just because the hardware is cheaply made. It says it is made in Hong Kong, so I'm thinking even maybe 1980s, late 70s. It's in perfect condition though, and I just really like the print on this one. It definitely has a glittery tone to it. I believe I got this one for $2 at a thrift shop. The reason why I held this one up earlier, because it definitely has that 1920s look. And like I said before, I have a feeling a lot of it has to do with The Great Gatsby coming out in the 70s. This one was made in Hong Kong, so I know obviously it isn't actually from the 1920s, and you can just tell from the hardware and the little details and just the beading in general, but I think it's really cute. I got this one in my Redbird vintage box. I quite like it. It's a very fun piece, and it's in like perfect condition, and it definitely has that 1920s revival to it. And I also got this one in my Redbird vintage. It's more like a little velvet wallet. This again is very kind of an Art Nouveau look to it. It's very cute, but it kind of also, the little bow somehow reminds me of the 1950s. I think the pink is also very 1950s, so I'm gonna kind of estimate this one is most likely from the 1950s. Let me know what you guys think. This was another one I got in my Redbird vintage. It looks like someone cut out the lining in it, because you can see the little reminiscence of it. It looks like it has a vinyl lining, so I'm thinking this is probably even from the 60s or 70s. Kind of reminds me of, I don't know, that bohemian look. Maybe someone even used older hardware. It's hard to say. It does feel a bit heavier. And this is just like kind of a unique purse. I like the pink and green combo, and this one also was from my Redbird vintage. This beautiful beaded piece, in my opinion, is quite old. I think it might even be Edwardian, or maybe even early 1920s. The reason why I'm thinking it's very old, you can see it's all hand braided and corded along here, and it just has that Edwardian look to it. It looks very Art Nouveau with the beautiful floral. I can just tell that it's very old. Even the hardware feels old with the beautiful beading, and the fact that it's made in France. This is like one of my more precious pieces that I received in my Redbird vintage. The last bag is one of my favorite bags that I picked up at the thrift shop. I got this one a few years ago. I think it's really pretty because I like the larger size. As you can see, I can hold more. And again, I love the beautiful kind of needle point design. And I just think it's so fun for spring and summer, and I always wear it with my little outfits. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know which ones are your favorite. Let me know if you have any ideas of when these purses were made, and if you can date them. I'd love to know. I always love to hear your opinion. And also, if you guys are following me on Instagram, please say hello anytime. I always love to get your messages. I'm always posting things in my stories about my research and upcoming video ideas, and I just would love to hear from you guys as well. So I'll link my Instagram below, and I'll see you guys again next week. All right, bye.